Thank you, President. Just wanted to update the board on some, I thought, very relevant kinds of issues that I wanted you to be aware of. And if you've got any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to step in. As of Monday, there were some changes statewide in some of the quarantine protocols, and I just want to review 4 of those with you. You remember that there has been a process that should a class or a group get 3 positive cases in that class or group or team, then that class or group or team would be closed down for 2 weeks. That requirement will only now pertain to elementary school, not to secondary schools. And I think part of the reason is health officials explained it to us was that at an elementary level, those students are in the same classroom all day long. So anyway, that requirement to close down a class or a group with 3 positive cases from Monday on only will pertain to elementary. The quarantine requirement has now been reduced from 14 days to 10 days. But health officials have certainly continued to tell us that that incubation period, if you will, of when you're exposed and when you could show symptoms is still 14 days. I think the rationale for health officials changing the requirement from 14 days to 10 days really dealt with trying to get people to stay with the quarantine. That 2 weeks, people just weren't even following that in many cases. I'm not talking in Weaver School District, I'm talking across the state. So the hope I think health officials had in reducing it from 14 to 10 days was that people then would see that that's doable and adhere to that. In our contact letter, when we go through the contact tracing, in our letter, we state that it's 10 days, but we also state that they should be very attentive to symptoms up to 14 days. And if they feel or experience any of those symptoms, they should isolate and get tested. The third that I'll just mention is there is no quarantine requirement for school exposures where masks are worn. And this, I think, is evident of the increasing science behind the effectiveness of masks and an encouragement of people in school to wear masks, so that if a parent says, look, I just don't want my child to quarantine, it's within their control. Just keep your mask on. And the fourth one I'll mention is for those schools that have more than 1,500 in their student body, the threshold for closure is not 15, it's 1%. And that will impact 3 of our high schools, Roy, Fremont, and Weaver. Roy has just over 1,800 students, and so their threshold becomes 18 students. Both Weaver and Fremont have just over 2,000 students, so their threshold becomes 20. So those are some of the new quarantine protocols, if you will, that went into effect on Monday this week, January 4th.
I actually like that, thanks.
Yeah,
I have
please.
a question. You said it only applies in elementary, but regarding sorry.
Regarding teams, that no longer applies?
Correct. And a lot of that is because of the every other week testing. So it's kind of a test play. So I think the strategy behind that is those that are positive will be identified, on a regular basis because they're being tested on the first and third Monday of every
But that
month.
doesn't close the team,
It does not.
even if they have positive cases.
Correct. It's just a test to stay, a test to continue to play.
And your teams are also playing with
So the
masks.
individuals obviously isolate. The individuals who test positive are then asked to isolate. They're not participating. Anybody who tests negative, can continue to play. So the 3 requirement is only pertaining to elementary from this point forward. Okay? The second thing I wanted to talk about are vaccines, the vaccination process. And we're still getting some information from this. We don't have all information, and I'll try to talk about that. But on December 17th, Governor Herbert moved teachers into that higher priority category to receive the vaccination. Vaccinations were sent to hospitals to vaccinate workers within the hospital, but there's also other healthcare workers, first line individuals, police, fire, first responders that are still in that priority group, and they are being vaccinated now. They're going through that process now. We're in that same group, but below them, in the same priority category, but listed just below first responders, health workers, and so forth. Our nurses have been vaccinated, or have been offered that because of, not through the district, but because of their role as healthcare workers. We are trying to get some other individuals into that category, if you will, into that, and I'm talking about our physical therapists, occupational therapists, even our speech language pathologists who are exposed because they're not usually wearing masks as they're working with children. And we're trying to get those in our high schools who are involved in the every other week testing. We would like them to get vaccinated as soon as possible. But that's not our call. So we're advocating for that. But again, that's not our call. I know that the health department is being pressured to, let this group in, let that group in. So we'll just continue to advocate, but we see those groups that I mentioned as certainly at risk, and would like to advocate for them. The best information that we have is that teachers should begin to be vaccinated on January 25th.
Dean is raising his hand.
Dean, do you have a question?
I do. Are the substitute teachers, are they considered ones to be vaccinated also?
Thanks, Dean. Initially, we were told to put them on the list, and then we were told to separate them and not have them included. So the word right now is that they're not included in that list. However, we are advocating that they be included. We think they should be included. And so I think one thing to understand is that these kinds of decisions are not ours to be made. just like I said, we're trying to advocate for our PTs, OTs, SLPs, our high school testers to get vaccinated now instead of waiting until January 25th. That's not our call, but we're advocating, we're trying to make that happen. And in the same sense, we would like our substitute teachers to be included with the other employees of the school district. And we are advocating for that, and I know that there are other districts who are advocating for that, but that's not our call. Does that make sense?
It does. I just know how important they are, especially if people are getting sick. We have to have good quality teachers, good quality substitute teachers in the classroom, so.
I agree completely, and that's the argument that we're making. That they are in the classroom, and many of them are in the classroom every single day. So we will continue to advocate for that, and I know other districts are doing the same.
Thank you.
We are in the Weaver-Morgan Health Department area, which includes Weaver School District, Ogden School District, and Morgan School District. There are approximately 8,000 employees that make up those 3 school districts. We make up about 4,800 of that. Last month, we were informed that Weaver-Morgan Health was getting about 1,080 vaccines per week. We checked this week, and that has increased slightly to 1,300 per week. And what we were told is that you can almost expect that 1,300 through the remainder of January. I'm hopeful that that number will begin to accelerate quickly, because the quicker that number accelerates, how many vaccines Weaver-Morgan Health receives, the quicker we're going to be able to get all of our employees vaccinated. At 1,300 per week, let's say that they're able to start with teachers and school employees on January 25th, and you've got 8,000, it's going to take a little bit to get through that. We're in the process, and Art's doing a tremendous job of this, of collecting some data to show who wants to be vaccinated. And I think in our district so far, we've had about 2,000 people respond. And we're just over 85% who are wanting to be vaccinated. If that holds true across the Ogden district and the Morgan district, there's probably going to be about 7,000 people that want to be vaccinated. So it could be, up to 6 weeks to work our way through that. And that's why I'd like to see, and I'm hopeful, and I think there's optimism in the state and county levels. There's optimism that that number will accelerate. Right now, I think we're seeing coordination between the federal government and the state government, and we're also seeing coordination between the state government and local county agencies. And I'm sure that there are some bugs getting worked out in that process, and it will, continue to move more smoothly. I have understanding about the challenges that our local health department faces, because they have been almost overwhelmed, if you will, with contact tracing and testing, and now vaccinations are laid on their plate as well. With teachers, I know the health department has contracted with, they're called Community Nursing Services, CNS. And they will be the ones that provide the vaccine to us. I don't know what that schedule's gonna look like. I don't, but my feeling, board, is that I'll do almost anything when the moment comes to get our people vaccinated. I don't know what kind of a schedule will be given to us, but I wanna do everything within our power to facilitate our people being able to get vaccinated as soon as those vaccinations are available. And so as we get more information, I'll stay in touch with you on that. Any questions on vaccinations? Robert?
Well, let's not go there. I can see if I can. If someone doesn't want to get a vaccination,
We're not requiring it.
okay, but then, okay, that's all my question is. But I'm wondering if they get sick, it's kind of like you should. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Is there any kind of consequence? I guess there's not. Like with the athletes, if they refuse to test, they don't play. But with our employees, there's no consequence of any sort.
I would recommend that we allow that to be a personal choice.
I think it'll be similar to the flu shot,
Yeah.
Okay.
would be my advice. What do you think?
I would advocate that we just allow that to be a personal choice. You're seeing by the numbers that the vast majority, it's above 85%. It's not quite at 90%, but it's above 85% of individuals who want to receive the vaccine.
And I agree with that. But I thought it would be good if we prepared with a common, because board members might get hit up by people saying, I don't want to be vaccinated. And what's with that?
Yeah.
If everybody around them gets vaccinated.
Well, I was gonna say, I think that is an optional, but I like your thought. You're probably going in the direction that we will be asked. But at the same time, it's kind of like Jeff was saying this morning when we had a discussion about, is it rolls through on a first-time basis for some people who chose not to? I think as we wrap up and go, it's no different than these masks. I flew back in April, I was the only one that had a mask on an airplane. And it was different because I wanted to be shunned. Now it's like everybody has them and they're normal. I think that, I hope that same process comes to on the shot, is people will say, I missed it, but I'm gonna take the next chance to get it because it's the best thing.
I think one thing to be aware of, and Brandon and Barb, I'm kind of speaking to you, you can maybe help with this, but I think we're not going to force or punish or someone who chooses not to, but I think that what will happen is if somebody chooses not to be vaccinated and then a month later changes their mind, I think they're probably going to just be with the general public.
Yes.
I don't see that there will be like a makeup that, hey, somebody changed their mind. And I don't want to have that presented in a way that causes people to feel like, we're forcing you to make a decision. We've got some days to make decisions. I don't want to force anybody to make a decision, but I think they need to understand that if they choose not to be vaccinated, they're probably just going to then be included in the general public should they change their mind. Okay?
I have a question. Do we have a policy regarding vaccinations for students when they're starting school?
We do.
And if they choose not to, are there ramifications?
There's some policies that, there are. But
This
there's
would be
also
related to that.
but there's also some exemptions. There's ways to get an exemption.
Okay.
So we encourage it, but in the end, there are exemptions, and I'd recommend that we do the same thing.
Barb got a question. Let's look at it.
And there might be some people that if don't want, they're nervous, they're not necessarily opposed to vaccination, but they're nervous in that first line out. Because they're nervous that the bugs haven't been worked out or whatever, you know. So there's a lot of reasons why some of it's.
I agree.
But I'm encouraged that it's only, that it's less than 50%.
One thing that is helpful, I think, as well, is that by the time our term comes, we will have had over a month of seeing around the country people, you know, being vaccinated. I think the number's up over 4 million now, and I think it's over 500,000 a day, and we're trying to get that nationwide to 1 million a day. So, you know, I think those who are nervous, and I understand that, will have an opportunity to see others. I'm going to just say I want the vaccine, and I you know, but I don't. That's my personal choice.
Sure, and that's
Yeah.
Barb, I think Barb had a question.
Barb, did you have a question? Okay. Let me move on to one other thing dealing with the legislature. We had some things occur in December that are absolutely unique from my probably 20 years of close interaction with the legislature. And I'll talk about that. But I think that it is a result of a lot of work and collaboration between public ed and legislators, especially related to the passage of Amendment G. The legislature was really looking for some additional flexibility to help them as they built the state budget. And with the constitutional amendment that tied income tax to public and higher ed, it caused some restriction. You understand that as we build a district budget, the more dollars that are restricted, it makes it a little more difficult. You get that. What we were looking for were some additional assurances. So we had a revenue guarantee with the constitutional amendment. What we didn't have was a funding assurance. And that was a lot of the discussion. The dialogue was always respectful, and but both groups understood, and there was some, I think, remarkable compromises and solutions that were reached. With the passage of Amendment G, it kicked into play both House Bill 357 and Senate Joint Resolution 9, which then put into statute, into law, some of the flexibility as well as some of the assurances. So in December, the Executive Appropriations met and basically put in place the public education budget. That never happens. Never. The public education budget was almost entirely put into place before the session even began. It's remarkable. Let me just talk a little bit about it, because all these things are exactly played out in legislation. The base budget was funded. The base budget is whatever was spent the year before. Enrollment growth was funded, and an inflationary adjustment was put in, and that inflationary adjustment was 1.82%. So the base budget, enrollment growth, and an inflationary adjustment. In addition, they put 4% on the WPU. That's in addition to the 1.82 inflationary adjustment. The 4% really was tied to House Bill 5011, which came about in the 5th special session. There were 6 special sessions, and House Bill 5011 came about in the 5th special session, and it was co-sponsored by two of our legislators, Representative Mike Schultz in the House and Senator Ann Milner in the Senate. And this was a WPU value increase guarantee. This was really recognizing that to close the last session, 2020, the legislature had appropriated 6% on the WPU. And then that, of course, got knocked back all the way to 1.82%, which was the inflationary adjustment, for that given year. But House Bill 5011, sponsored by Representative Schultz, Senator Miller, was basically saying, as soon as we can, we want to restore that. I'll tell you, I thought it was going to take years. They did it in year one. But that 4% was tied back to what the legislature had originally given in the 2020 session. And it is a fulfillment, if you will, of House Bill 5011, which was that WPU value increase guarantee. The other thing that happened is they set aside $125 million for bonuses. And there's a bonus for our certified, as well as $1,500 for teachers and $1,000 for our classified. The cost of that was $125 million. Let me just tell you a little bit about that $125 million. One of the things that was put in place last year was what was called an ongoing stabilization fund. Now, some will say it's an ongoing rainy day. And the thing that's a little unique about it, normally we think about rainy day money as one-time money. But this was an ongoing stabilization fund. And the purpose of it, as I worked with legislators, the purpose of it is, should there ever be a year where the legislature's not able to fund enrollment growth or that inflationary adjustment, we could pull some of that ongoing stabilization money and fund that. Now, in any given year, they can maintain the ongoing nature of that, but capture the $125 million and use it in a one-time fashion. Does that make sense? The ongoing will just continue, but any given year they could take the $125 million from that specific year and use it for some purpose. That's where the bonus money came from. The bonus money really came from taking one time the $125 million from that ongoing stabilization fund. So this is it's a unique year working with the legislature because the budget's set. Normally, we've got Brandon and Barb and Jennifer. They know. Janice knows it well. The budget usually isn't talked about until about mid to late February. That's when they start to put the building blocks of the budget together, and public ed is the primary, piece of that budget. But it's really an extraordinary thing. I've never seen anything like it. The legislature has acted with tremendous good faith, and we'll see a 5.82% increase on the weighted pupil unit. 4% tied to House Bill 5011, which was restoring that WPU value, and 1.82% as an inflationary adjustment. It's positive. And if you have a chance to speak with legislators, I have communicated with all those that I've worked with, and just what a remarkable thing it is. It's a tremendous thing. I never would have thought in the midst of this pandemic that would be in this case. And I think legislators are probably a little bit surprised that our economy has performed. Certainly there are certain sectors of the economy that have struggled, but overall the economy has performed at a level that we're able to do this.
Jeff,
Yeah,
I just have to do a tiny bit of like UEA horn tooting because, you know, our president worked really hard with legislators last year to have the compromise to get that 6%. And when they pulled it back at the end of last year, the legislators really promised that they would come through looking at the numbers and work with us if the G passed. So, you know, I also, we've been told many times as an association that things would happen and they didn't. And so we're just very pleased that all of the promises that were made came true, and they're doing right by the teachers like they should each year. And so
Barb,
it's just so positive and refreshing when we need positive news, right?
I absolutely agree, and I'm going to tell you that the best we could do last year was 5%, and then the UEA came in and got it to 6%, and that is absolutely the way it happened. We had worked with them, the best we could do was 5%. So here's to the UEA, and again, I think it was, you know, we are seeing examples all across our country of how not to work together. And we saw a whole different thing in Utah last spring, summer, and even now. It's good. It's good.
And I really feel like that's really the golden piece of this is that we all joined together to do the right thing and just really believed in each other, and it happened. So I hope more of that is to come.
Yeah, there was a lot of trust, there was a lot of respect, and it wasn't easy, was it? It wasn't easy, but when you work together, and I give kudos to our legislators, especially our legislative leaders. The leadership was remarkable. So the session hasn't even started, and we know where we are.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome. Well, if we have nothing else, Board, we're going to give you 4 minutes to go ahead and take a pit stop before we get started with the regular board meeting. So
I'll say one other